Hi everyone. Sorry for the delay this morning. We're still gonna talk about them just in a little bit because he's just having a few technical difficulties. But we will come back to him shortly. And in the meantime, I thought I would spend 15 or 20 minutes talking to you about set electrics and how, as an associate, what your responsibilities are for it and what you might be doing from the start of the process to look after, draft, package, send out to bid, keep on top of all the set electrics for a show. So, first of all, well, a massive well done for yesterday to everyone, because I know I was in and out, but it was a mad day of lots of information. So, and lots of you sent the spot sheets already. That's great. Don't worry if you haven't yet done it. It's not no time pressure. Um, and because we realise it's quite a big day, and then a lot of stuff, and then people will be working in the evenings filling out the sheets. Yeah, just do it in your own time. Don't worry about it. You did a really good job yesterday. So we're going to do another project today later on after we've spoken to Robin. But in the meantime, I thought I would start by talking about how you approach doing scenic electrics for a show as an associate. So I guess it's quite ultimately every show is different, because you might have a remit for the set electrics that comes very early on from the set designer, that's what they've decided, that when they've designed the set, they've incorporated into that a whole ton of scenic electrics, which you'll bash out the detail with the lighting designer as the process goes through, but ultimately there's a whole load of stuff that's already in there for you. Or it might be that it's a set that when it's presented in its first white card format, doesn't have any, and the lighting designer comes into the process and thinks that actually there should be LED tape here and a light box here and a load of practical lights there. So it all depends on where in the process you start and where in the process the set electrics are when you have started. But it's they all sort of follow the same format, no matter how big or little the show is and how many bits of meters of tape you've got on a show. So, like before, I think it's always better just to give an example, because it's something that you can, it's certainly something that I can then give some more specific answers to if anyone's got any questions, and hopefully it'll help you understand a bit more how we go through it all. So in the Dropbox, under Wednesday, and the set electrics drawings, I've got a couple of bits in there to have a look at. So I think the best one to start with is probably, there's two documents called BOOH. And one says Tor Falco Tower LX spec, another one says Set LX 06 Falco Tower. That's bat out of hell. It's the US Tor. So these are all produced by Craig Stelzenmuller, who we talked about briefly the other day, who's a fantastic US associate. This is just one element of the set that came from Bat Out of Hell that had some set electrics in it. And the reason I think it's quite a good example is because I can sort of talk the story of that piece and how we got to where we got to, which is when the show was first designed in the UK, it was an out of town in Manchester. It was designed by John Borsa. When the show was first designed and John Borsa designed the set, he gave us a remit that he wanted this tower to have some LED tape on it, and you can see if you look on the document that says B06 Paco Tower, you can see the design of the tower, and there's the front elevation and the side elevation of the tower, and you can see all the LED tape lines that are there. And where it says H1, H2, H3, H4, V1, V2, V3, V4, they were sort of girders that ran ludicrously high. The whole piece was something like 12.5 meters tall. And he said that he thought each line should have some LED tape in it. So when we did the show in Manchester, we just ran a strip of LED into the extrusion and with a bit of lens cap on, and we did that on all those lines. And Then the show did London, the same set was used. Then the show went out and did a US tour, and so lots of things were cut down because it needed a tour, and also we were building a set from scratch, so we had a chance to look at all the things we'd done before that were wrong and try and make them better again. So if we now start the process there, we know that we're doing a tour, which is a big thing about set electrics, because if you're doing set electrics for a tour versus set electrics for a sit down, you've got to make sure that it's got to be put in and out of a truck every day, every week, every month, whenever it might be, and that will influence quite heavily what you end up doing. But we brought Craig on as the US associate, and we said that we would like to do this tower in pixel tape this time, because we thought we'd like um, a bit more level of control, and because we were cutting lots of things from the show to make it tour, that made that piece a bit more interesting, and we could do more with it from a lighting point of view. So the first thing you do as an associate when someone came, is that when the designer came to you and said, "Okay, we'd like this to be pixel tape," he took the drawing that existed for the show that was drawn by the US Scenic associate, and we just we roughed out where we thought all the, the tape should go and the lengths it should be. So you'll see that in that drawing, he's done a little red line um, where the tape should be, and then he's split it up into different areas, which is to do with how it tours. So you'll see that there's a dark red line, a blue line, and a green line, and a thin red line, and that's because that's how the piece is made. So they're the bits of tape, although it's pixel tape, they're still the bits that are going to have to break away for a tour. He's just highlighted those as a different color in the drawing, and then he's written a spec for what it needs to be. This is a fairly standard US scenic electric specification document. It's quite the US associates and the US design teams go into a lot more detail in their spec systems than when we do in the UK, and there's lots of pluses and minuses for both ways of doing it. Someone could, and Tim, I'm sure, will tell me otherwise, but I think that the reason they're so specific when they put a spec together for the US is because everything is budgeted within an inch of its life. You have to make sure that when you send the spec out, that what the manufacturers are coming back with is exactly what you want, and they're not just thinking that, oh, actually it'd be a lot cheaper if we put this other type of driver on it, and then we'll be able to get the show because we can get it in budget. And then they come back to you 6 months later and say, oh, actually, yeah, sorry, we chose to use this driver instead. So the reason this document is so specific is so that that can't be done, or rather, it's you're tied into, you've said that you will provide this for this much money, and therefore, please check back on the document you agreed to. It says that you're going to use this type of driver and this type of tape, so they can't have anything to come back at you 6 months down the line and say, oh, actually, can we just use this tape instead because it's cheaper? We are still specific in the UK, but not as specific as the US associates do it. There isn't really, I suppose now I say it, there's not a hugely good reason why we're not, but I've over the last couple of years got more specific with specification because it helps give you a fair price against the various contractors that are going to do it, rather than just say, I would like some tape. Someone will come back, inevitably someone will come back the cheapest because they will pick a cheaper type of tape. If you're going to ask everyone to quote exactly the same product, you've got a fair chance at comparing. So the spec gets put together, and that, as you can see in his document, he's written on the last page, so page 4, which is where it says girders. Tower has the pixel tape that runs along the length of all the vertical and the horizontal girders, mounted in an aluminium extrusion with a frosted cover. So it's exactly the same as we did in the UK, except it's now just pixel tape. And then he's specified exactly what pixel tape to provide. So the NTEC pixel tape, for anyone that's used it or is aware of it, is a fairly industry standard pixel tape that we have used and will continue to use on lots of things, because NTEC are a good manufacturer, and it's good support, and it's a product that's well tested and used. We wanted RGB white which is what he's put down there. He's put black pixel tape, which means you get black backed tape. So it helps it disappear when the light is off. If you get white backed tape, even with a white cover, if you're shining a light at it, you might get light bounce back off the white and you'll see the tape. If it's black, it sort of disappears a bit better. And then he's put it's to be mounted to aluminium extrusion with a frosted cover, and he's put a link to the aluminium extrusion. So all of these things are just to help ensure that when it goes out, I think this went to be bid in the US by PRG and Hudson, so just two companies, but it gives you a fair chance that each company are going to come back with a price for exactly what you've asked for, and so you can go back to them and say, look, you're $18,000 more expensive than Hudson are, so let's go through the spec and see why that is, rather than just saying, please provide some pixel tape, please provide an appropriate extrusion, because then someone will ultimately come back cheaper and win the job, and then you'll regret it 8 months later when you realise that it's all just cheap stuff off the back of a lorry. And so he'll put this document got put together, and then this document as a PDF and the drawing got sent to Hudson and it got sent to PRG, and then they come back and they put a price on it. And that's sort of that's the first stage that you would go through as an associate when you get told that you, by the designer, that this is what we'd like for this piece. We'd like some pixel tape. You put together a drawing, you put together a spec, you send it out, and it gets priced up. And then there are copious more stages to come after that. But that's a fairly brief summary of what you would be doing to start with, and then after we've chatted to Robin, we'll go into detail about exactly how you write a spec and exactly how you do the drawing and exactly how you might interpret a designer's quite high level design wording for what they want, whether you need to be the one to spec the product. We'll go through all that in a bit more detail after we've had a chat to Robin. But if anyone's got any questions first on anything that is that sort of basic, high level, early on concept work of how, as an associate, what you do for Scenic Electrics, then write it in the chat. And otherwise, we're going to invite Robin into the fold and let him talk about his company, Lamp and Pencil, which is one of the I call them the big four in the UK: Scenic Electrics and Special Effects and Practical Contractors. And he provides for many big shows in the UK and across the world. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about his process from the other side. So Robin and I have worked together on quite a few shows, and the sort of information that we give him, and then what he needs, what he doesn't need, what he expects, what he doesn't expect, and how to make everyone's life and the whole process a little bit easier.